Hello listeners, this is the podcast of the InnCoCells project, and today I am in Brussels and I'm interviewing John. John, please tell our listeners who you are, what you do, where you're from, who you work for, etc.
Yes, thank you, Richard. John Fitzgibbon, working for the European Plant Science Organisation in Brussels. So I've been here in Brussels now for 20 years, would you believe? It's came over here in the early noughties with my European Policy Masters in my back pocket and thinking I was going to stay just for a few years, and here I am 20 years later, and doesn't time go quickly? EPSO is a European association responsible for working with universities in the field of plant science. So it's a representative organisation at European level that brings in something like 200 organisations across 31 countries, I think we're in now. We're even talking to New Zealand about a member joining from there. So it's a fairly widely flung organisation, has been going since the year 2000 and headed up by Dr. Karin Metzlaff, who has been there since day one. So I'm currently working on the preparations for the Fascination of Plants Day. This is a biennial event that EPSO is responsible for coordinating. It's coming up to its 7th edition around the 18th of May next year to raise awareness of plants and plant science globally. The 2022 edition, we had over 50 countries involved with 800 events taking place where people are taking kids to botanic gardens, or you had lectures in universities, or you had interactive events across the board involving anyone effectively. It's open to everyone, and that's an example of something that we're very preoccupied with at the moment.
So John, perhaps you can just give us a brief summary of what EPSO gets up to in the InnCoCells project.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, of course, being a European association with outreach to so many organisations across Europe and beyond, we are really sort of a perfect example of a communication dissemination vehicle for a project like this. We have something like 2,600 personal members that we can actually interact with about get the messages from the InnCoCells project out to. So I think we have a very valid role in terms of supporting yourself as the lead partner for the communications work package. So essentially that is the brief. In addition to that, we're also in charge of facilitating a stakeholder group, and that stakeholder group has met now on 2 occasions, with a third meeting coming up next month, I believe, at the end of the month.
It's a virtual meeting, I think. So what we do, we have a meeting every year where we all get together somewhere. It was Luxembourg most recently, and then the 6-month point we have an online meeting. So we still all manage to update everybody and exchange all the results, etc. But we do it online to save costs.
Okay, so talked a little bit about EPSO in the background and the role that we have, but very much in support of yourself, Richard, in terms of the work package on communication, dissemination, exploitation. Please tell us a bit more about your company, TRM, and what it's like being a work package leader on such a large horizon research and innovation project like InnCoCells.
Let's let the listeners in on the secret. So the idea of these podcasts is to have personal chats with the people who are working in the project. And of course, I'm working in the project, but I've been doing the prompting on most of the podcasts because that's my job. But we have to have a podcast for me as well, because I'm one of the partners. So what we've decided to do this time is basically share responsibility. So John is going to prompt me and I'm going to prompt John. So me on the other side of the microphone now. So TRM is my company. It's just basically a small company in the UK which mainly handles scientific communication in terms of language revision and helping to organise information, making information more easily presentable. And this involves a lot of helping with the preparation of research manuscripts and other scientific documents, usually research level, but sometimes commercial level, including patents and things like that, but that's slightly more specialised. And InnCoCells is a sort of like an extension of that, because my role in InnCoCells and the role of my company in InnCoCells is to handle the dissemination, communication and exploitation activities of the project.
Okay, well then on that particular note, you mentioned, and I noticed you picked up on this in previous project meetings, the distinctions between communication, dissemination and exploitation. Perhaps for the benefit of our listeners, you could elaborate on this again and explain to them what those differences are.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. So dissemination and communication, they both involve the provision of information to people. So the main difference is that dissemination is like disclosure. So you have to make your results available to other people. And when I say other people, I mean stakeholders. And by that, I mean people who could potentially benefit from the project. So a typical kind of dissemination activity would be presenting results in a scientific article, for instance, and the target for that kind of activity would be researchers. Or we could be handing over some data to someone who could, in our case, make a cosmetic ingredient and include it in their next product, because they are able to take our results and use them in some way. And if that use is commercial, then this is exploitation or economic exploitation. You can exploit results without the economic element, but most people talking about exploitation, talking about commercial exploitation. So making a product and making some money, making some profit. The difference between that and communication is that communication is much more general. So the idea with dissemination is that you disclose your results to people who are going to use them. And so you can use kind of like technical specialist language, because the people who are going to benefit from those results will understand what you're talking about. Whereas the other important part of running a Horizon project is to make sure that you increase the awareness of people of what you're doing and why what you're doing is important, what the impact of the work will be, what it will basically mean for them in the end. So why would anybody on the street care what we're doing? And basically this is what the communication side is. So the dissemination is making sure that our results get to the right people who can make use of them. Communication is just increasing general awareness of the project. So dissemination would be like going to a conference and presenting some data. Communication would be like a press release where anyone in the world can read it and find out what's going on, putting updates on the website, putting things out on social media, that kind of thing. So that's my job. That's what I do in the project. And the podcasts actually are part of the communication, because we basically, this is helping people understand what we're doing in the project.
Okay, excellent, very good. I mean, if we just sort of step back a step or two, when I joined the project halfway through, I was struck particularly looking through the documentation about the excellent communication plan, communication dissemination exploitation plan that you'd put together at the bid stage, which obviously helped in the processing of the application, and how thorough and detailed it was. And we're now sort of into the fruits of that labour, if you like.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I can't take all the credit for that, because the having this sort of communication plan is actually a requirement for getting the funding. So it has to be done. It's not like, oh, it was a great idea I had, we could, we put this plan together and it will make the project run more smoothly. It's like a mandatory part of the proposal, and everyone gets involved, obviously, in writing the proposal. So it's all hands on deck to put that plan together. But you're right. I mean, when you look at it and you see how it's set out, it makes quite clear how we're going to do things, and we've got quite a lot of diverse material based on that plan. And not only that, there has been a certain amount of adjusting it on the fly in response to unexpected things happening. And this is all, again, part of communication. You've got to be able to be quite nimble and know if you get an opportunity to expand in a particular direction, then you take that opportunity and you develop some communication material around that. Now I'm going to take you back a couple of steps. Yeah. You said you joined the project halfway through. Was it easy to sort of integrate into it, or did you find that a bit of a sharp and steep learning curve?
It's undoubtedly difficult, isn't it, when you're not there at the beginning and all the relationships are being formed. So it was difficult, but I think working with the InnCoCells team, they've certainly made things easy from the perspective of it's a very cohesive group. They're very, very specialised and expert and focused on what they're trying to achieve. So coming into the project, having done the background reading, and then Luxembourg really for me was like the baptism of fire, meeting everyone and being part of the team and working up on those 2 videos, one of which is now already out there, the commercialization video, which is available on the InnCoCells website, and there'll be a second one due out in November on scientific progress at the halfway stage. Now, EPSO is responsible for developing those videos. We've done 4 now, there are 4 in the can, 3 on the website, 1 to go out next month, and there will be 2 more before the end of the project. So working on that really helped me to sort of get into the project and understand the good work that's being undertaken, and to get to know the project, familiarise myself really. So, yes, it was daunting at the beginning, particularly as it's very, very scientifically focused, but at the same time, having sort of met the team and sort of got to know them, it's really, you can see that it's a great project and good things are going to come out of it as we go forward.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. My perspective, I've always been a firm believer in, if you know what you're talking about, you can teach other people. Part of the job here is to communicate well with the public. If you want, you've got a 4-year project which has got some quite technical and scientific goals, which, if written in the wrong way, would just come out as confusing and intimidating. People would not be able to pick up on what you're trying to do. They'd have no idea what you're trying to achieve or the value. So learning to present that in a way which you know that other people will understand actually helps you learn about the project as well. Because yes, I was there from the beginning, but it's still an awful lot to take in. Working with 16 different organisations, they've all got their specialist roles. There's some industry people, there's some academic people, and you've got to try and synthesize everything they do. It's quite a challenging task, I'd say.
Well, indeed, and given the diverse range of partners that you refer to there, how do you bridge, and keep them all on board? How do you keep them sort of engaged, particularly with the communications activities? Because not all partners would see themselves perhaps as responsible for doing communication dissemination. They would see that as perhaps just, as the work package leader, your responsibility.
Perhaps, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, so there's 2 ways to look at that. Yes, there is a certain amount of, if you're a work package leader, you have to crack the whip occasionally. There's certainly an element of that, but that would be the same for all the work package leaders. But the other side of that coin is that the dissemination and communication is good for everybody. All the partners involved intrinsically want to publicise what they're doing because it gives them more visibility, and in the end the motive is for the academic partners. They eventually want to attract more funding to do more research. For the industry partners, they want to develop more products and sell more things. So they are all in some way wanting to get information out about themselves. So in a way, I'm more of a conduit for their what they want to do. Sometimes, yes, there's some persuasion required to get the work done, but it's not as bad as that because everyone's motivated actually to got their own. They all benefit from it. So it's a good system. So just to explain for our listeners, the InnCoCells project has 9 different work packages, which are basically, there's 5 which are purely scientific, and then there's some which are involved in the drive towards commercialising the products and the communication. I'm the leader of that work package. So there's one person basically in charge of each of the work packages, and they have to make sure that everyone who is involved in that work is coordinated and works together well. And they also have to report everything that's been done every 6 months or year to the European Commission, because the European Commission provides the money. And so they want to know what we're doing and how we're spending it and whether we are doing worthwhile things. So the work package leader is partly responsible for driving the work forwards and partly responsible for reporting and making sure that the funding body is satisfied with what we've done.
Okay, good. If we can just go back to communications again, the range, going back to the work plan and the range of resources that InnCoCells have developed since the project began in May 2021. Tell us a bit more about these, because obviously podcasts are one aspect of this, videos are another, but there will be other things as well, publications and so on and so forth.
What surprised me is that, as I said earlier, every partner who is involved in the project has to plan their work. And the reason they have to plan their work is because they have to ask for the money to do the work. So you can't just start one of these projects and decide on Monday morning you're going to get out of bed and do this experiment or this video, because you have to have already said that you're going to dedicate a month of your time to this particular activity. And this will be in the proposal that goes in 2 years before the project is funded. And then again, the way it works in practice is that the outputs for the project have to be formalised in a document called a deliverable. And each of the deliverables is essentially, you could consider them as like a legally binding contract. So I don't know offhand how many deliverables we've got in the project in total, but it's around about 30 or 40, I think. And there is some in each of the work packages, and they're all timed. So we need to do something by month 5 and something by month 10 and something by month 20 and all this. And if we miss a target like that, then we have to basically explain the circumstances and ask permission to change the date. So it's very formal. So there's a lot of preordained work, and you can't just sort of like click your fingers and do something off the cuff. There's a certain amount of flexibility that can be built in, but mostly it's all pre-planned. So the diversity of all the communication material we've got, and the dissemination activities and the exploitation plan and everything like that, most of that was pre-planned. We've already set out a list of things we want to achieve, and we're now working through that list to achieve them. Interestingly, a lot of the work packages, the scientific ones, the deliverables are spread quite evenly throughout the project because the work goes on throughout the project. In my work package, which is to do with the dissemination communication, it's quite a sort of like a uneven distribution, because there's a lot of things that have to happen almost straight away. You've got to get a press release out to launch the project, you've got to get the website set up, you've got to get the social media set up, you've got to do a lot of prep to get everything ready. And then there comes a sort of like a middle sort of period where everything's sort of ticking along, and you update the website and you update the social media and all this sort of thing, but basically it's steady. And then towards the end, then you've got another sort of rush to get everything together. So it's like a U-shape, and a lot of these activities at the beginning and a lot at the end. There have been certain times in the project where, like I said earlier, an opportunity arises, we can't say no, because it's a good way to increase our reach, a good way to reach new people. So I'll give you a couple of examples. We have formed a sort of like a collaborative cluster with 3 other projects that were funded under the same call. So again, for the listeners, a call is where the funding body puts out a tender for some work, and you have to write the proposal to do the project. And it's not necessarily just one project that gets funded. Sometimes there are quite a few. So in our case, the call that we participated in, there were 4 projects that got funded under the same call. And we now have a kind of collaboration with them where we produce joint efforts in terms of communication material and in terms of looking at, whether, I hate to use this sort of like buzzwords, but whether we can get synergy. Because if we've got 4 projects all basically trying to do one thing, it makes sense to pool the resources and make a joint, like let's say we're going to produce a leaflet or a brochure to advertise what the project's doing. That means everyone's got to commit their time to that. But if we produce one leaflet or brochure with all 4 projects in, then we basically only spend a quarter of the time on each. But we still have one output that all 4 projects can claim, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's good economics. It's the economy of scale. So this is the kind of thing. We've done one very nice brochure with the other 3 projects, and it's been published on our website, and everyone takes it to their meetings and conferences, etc. And we have more in the pipeline, because we essentially we've saved the resources doing a quarter of the work to get the same product, which means we can make 2 or 3 more of them for the same effort that we'd already decided to commit in the first place, because we'd already committed to producing a leaflet for one project. So these kind of things, these opportunities, you can adjust. But yeah, a lot of the diverse stuff, it's diverse because it was planned to be that way. But still very good fun to have all these different things. And I mean, it must be very similar for Epso, because you're not just doing the videos. You've got the newsletter, and there's all sorts of like...
Yes, we undertake to publicise or update our membership on the developments in the InnCoCells project in our autumn and spring newsletter. So twice a year we do that. In addition, we are responsible for making sure that social media adequately reflects things going on. So, for example, the Cosmetic 360 InnCoCells Roundtable this week, we were there supporting that. So, yeah, a whole range of sort of additional sort of activities that we bring to bear in terms of sort of promoting the project. And I think, that's really important for us to do that, working, with yourself and the partners to ensure that the profile of the project is sufficiently high as the work goes along.
Well, we're about 20 minutes in, John. I think we better call this one a day. Maybe we pick this up again later and discuss these topics a bit further. What do you reckon?
That's a great idea, Richard. Goodbye, listeners.
Goodbye, listeners. See you in the next edition. Thank you very much.